Neil Orfield here, founder of the Flaniverse. If you don't know me, all you really need to know is that I'm obsessed with fantasy sports. I've been playing for decades, and I've won a lot of money at it, especially in DFS, where I've won the NFL Millie Maker on DraftKings, and if you remove the Millie Maker, I'd still be up hundreds of thousands of dollars with a dozen wins of $90,000 or more. In the past, I've primarily been a hand builder and an optimizer user, and I still think you can win that way, but in 2025, I think that's playing on hard mode. Most of the best DFS players on the planet right now are using Sims products. So this year, I've upped my game. I've partnered with Run the Sims, and on this channel, I'll be demonstrating throughout this NFL season how I'm using Run the Sims to try to win a lot of money again this year. I hope you'll join me and that we'll win a lot of money together. If you're interested in checking out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment on any of their products. By the way, if you haven't already done so, please do like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season and could really use your support. Without further delay, let's get into it. This is how I'm setting up Run the Sims for the NFL Week 7 main slate on DraftKings. One of my favorite things about Run the Sims is how customizable it is. You can change things at the team level. You can change the number of points you expect a team to score, the number of plays you expect them to run, the rush rate versus pass rate. All of this you can edit within Run the Sims. And then, of course, you can also edit at the player level. You can change how much of the rushing workload you expect a player to get or the receiving workload. You can change all of that. And I love that. That's something that sets Run the Sims apart from a lot of other Sims products. One of the reasons that I am partnering with them and using the product this year. However, for the first run of the Sims, I actually don't make any changes to the inputs on the team or player level. The only thing I do is set up my settings to be the types of contests that I play. And the reason for that is you can't really know what you might want to change without seeing what the Sims are giving you. I want to see what I'm just getting out of the Sims without changing anything before I make any changes. So I'm just going to set things up here for my contest. I'm going to use the maximum number of lineups, 10,000. Size of contest field, I'm going to set at 15,000. Number of Sims, I'm also going to use the max 10,000. And then the payout structure, I'm going to do top heavy because the contests that I play tend to be top heavy payout structures. I'm not going to change anything here in this lineups field. And that's because I want to let the Sims do their thing. In general, I'm going to trust the product that I'm using. If a lineup pops that's only using 46,000 in salary, which is pretty unlikely, but if that happens, I don't want to tell it, no, I don't want that lineup. If the Sims are telling me that lineup is going to beat a lot of lineups using 50,000 in salary, I'm going to trust the Sims and just use that lineup. Same thing in terms of ownership. Maybe I'll get some chalky lineups built in. Maybe I'll get some really contrarian lineups. If the Sims are telling me that's what's winning in the contest fields, I don't want to tell the Sims what to do. I want the Sims to tell me this is what's working on this slate. So I'm not changing anything here in these fields. The only thing I'm going to do here is click the Shady Portfolio Diversifier button. This comes from Shady Advice, another one of the best DFS players on the planet. This is going to give you the best portfolio of lineups. So rather than just giving you the top 150 lineups or however many lineups you set it for, I'm going to set it for 150. But rather than just giving you the top 150 in terms of EV, it's going to give you the top 150 lineups that shows you are going to work the best together. So you're going to have the best portfolio of lineups that's going to have the highest EV. They're not going to cannibalize each other. It's going to minimize your risk of ruin using the Shady Portfolio Diversifier. So I'm going to use that. And then I'm just going to click this SimRunner Pro button. This will take a few minutes. I'm going to cut that part out of the video. Okay, the first run of the Sims are in. Here's a good time to remind you that Run the Sims is owned by some of the best DFS players in the world. So you could just use the lineups that it gives you. They have Nerdy Tenor, Utica, Brick 75, Ship My Money. All of them are running Run the Sims, doing the projections, doing the back end work. If you run the Sims on Saturday in particular, after inactives come out, after everything's updated, I think you could just use the lineups as they are. You don't really need to tweak anything. They're going to give you lineups that should grade out well in any kind of post contest simulator setting. So I think you just use these lineups. I of course will be tweaking some things because I spend all week talking about this stuff, thinking about this stuff, finding angles that I like. So I'll make some adjustments to the inputs, but you really don't need to do that. You could just do what I just did, and that could be enough. Of course, set things up for the contest that you're playing. I set things up for the largest field contests with the most contestants in them. If you're playing other contests, if you're playing, a field of 1,000 entries, you should obviously set it for that, set it different for the types of contests you're playing. But once you've done that, you really don't need to be making all these adjustments to the inputs. Everything I'm going to be doing here going forward is because, again, I spend a ton of time thinking about this. I have angles that I want to play, but it could be unnecessary. So anyway, let's get into the lineups that I'm getting in this first run of the Sims, my player exposures, and then some changes that I would want to make. So at the top, and these are not in order of the EV. Again, that's because I'm using the Shady Portfolio Optimizer tool, which is going to give me the best portfolio of lineups as opposed to just the top EV lineups. Top lineup we got here, though, Justin Herbert, single stacked with Quentin Johnston, has a Jonathan Taylor bringback. Brees Hall, Rashee Rice, Elick Ayamanur, Dallas Goedert, Trey McBride, and New Orleans Saints also in this lineup. So top lineup here is a double tight end lineup. That's kind of interesting. Second lineup is Bo Nix with Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton. We do not have any Giants bringbacks in this one. Also has Brees Hall, Jonathan Taylor, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Mayer, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and the Saints defense. Third lineup on a home stack with Rashee Rice single stacked, Michael Mayer bring back, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Cortland Sutton, Elick Ayamanor, Mason Taylor, and the Patriots defense. So we have two of our three lineups at the top are double tight end lineups. And I see another one in fifth. So and six, ton of double tight ends on this slate is what we're looking at. Let's take a look at my player exposures. So starting with quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that I'm getting in double digits as of right now, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. Worth noting that I'm only getting to 5% of Jaden Daniels. They haven't projected for 24% ownership, so it doesn't look as appealing at 24% ownership. And then 9% Patrick Mahomes, who's also projected for 14% ownership. With Justin Fields projected for 2% ownership, I'm getting 1.3%. So 2% does not make Justin Fields stand out. That's kind of notable. And then another player that I'm pretty interested in is Spencer Rattler, who is projected for 3% ownership. Currently, I'm getting right at 3%, so not getting a ton of Spencer Rattler. At running back, the running backs I'm getting in double digits, Jonathan Taylor getting to 59%, Josh Jacobs 16%, Brees Hall 26%, Saquon Barkley 17%, Javonte Williams 18%, Quinshon Judkins 17%, J.K. Dobbins 15%, DeAndre Swift 15%. That's it as far as double digits. Wide receivers in double digits, I'm getting to 29% Rashee Rice, 25% CeeDee Lamb, 21% Justin Jefferson, 15% Deebo Samuel, who is questionable as of right now, so that's something we need to keep an eye on. 24% Quentin Johnston, 11% Rome Odunze, 24% Cortland Sutton, 19% Marvin Harrison Jr., 13% Keenan Allen, 14% Jacoby Myers, 14% Elick Ayamanor, 10% Troy Franklin. That's it as far as double digits at wide receiver. Tight ends in double digits, pretty top heavy here. I'm getting a 33% Trey McBride, 13% Tyler Warren, 33% Michael Mayer, and 15% Mason Taylor. And then defenses pretty spread out as usual. This isn't something that I often make major adjustments to unless I really see an angle that I like at defense. Generally, I'm okay with just having spread out exposure here. I'm getting to 10% Cleveland Browns, no other defense in double digit exposures. So I'm going to try not to make too many changes, go overboard there, because the more changes I'm making, the more I'm telling it, I don't want to get the Sims that you're giving me. I'm trying to manually adjust things. And like I said, I generally want to let the Sims do their thing. They should tell me what is going to be good this week as opposed to me telling them. I might make some minor adjustments here because, again, there are some angles that I like. In general, though, happy that I'm getting to double digits of Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. Those are two quarterbacks that I'm kind of targeting here. I might want a little bit more Justin Fields, and then Spencer Rattler is an angle that I think I want to play. I think I'd like to have more than 3% there, just a really nice matchup for Spencer Rattler in a game that should be competitive there with the Bears. So that's an angle that I might want just a bit more Spencer Rattler. Running back honestly looks pretty great. I was J.K. Dobbins, a player that I've been kind of targeting. I'm already getting to nearly double the field. Pretty happy with that. I don't think I need 59% Jonathan Taylor. That feels a bit much for 8,800. There might be some other pay ups that I want to get to. So maybe that comes down a little bit. Obviously, I'm not that upset to get a ton of Jonathan Taylor. He is just crushing fantasy this year, but that's a bit more than I think I need. Also pretty happy that I'm only getting to 5% Devin Achane. Not that like I don't want to have Devin Achane, but he's just not my favorite angle as far as the pay ups go. I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor. I'd rather have Saquon Barkley. Looks good to me, and I'm getting to 17% Saquon Barkley. So I'm kind of over the field on the players that I'd like to be over the field on here. Also have to keep an eye on Josh Jacobs, who's also questionable, but I'm right with the field there. Getting to 10% Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 18% Javonte Williams. So generally getting to the running backs that I really like on this slate. No like major adjustments that I think I need to make here. I might try to get to a bit more Isaiah Pacheco, just from the standpoint that his workload is increasing. They're leaning on him more and more. He's just 5,000 in a matchup that the Chiefs could win pretty handily. So I might want a little bit of Pacheco. He is projected to get 3% ownership here. So it's not like he's completely unowned. At 3% ownership, I'm getting to 1%. I don't know that I really want to make any crazy big changes there, but a player that I'm trying to get a bit of. And then my off the wall play for large field tournaments that I'm sort of considering is RJ Harvey at 4,600. They're playing against the Giants. I think this could be just a spot where Denver wants to run more than they do historically. We saw it against the Bengals that, J.K. Dobbins is going to get his, but as the running back pie increases, it isn't really J.K. Dobbins who's getting more and more of the workload. Once they start running more and more, they bring in RJ Harvey more. So he's 4,600 in kind of the nut spot here. I might try to get just a little bit of RJ Harvey. He is projected for 1% ownership, so the field's not completely off him. Not a player that I'm highly prioritizing, but I think at 1%, I might want to get 2-3% RJ Harvey. I think that he is an interesting angle here, but maybe unnecessary, just given how many strong running back plays we have on the slate. A wide receiver, pretty happy to see I'm already getting to a lot of CeeDee Lamb. I was, kind of thinking that maybe I wouldn't get a lot there because I was getting to so much Jonathan Taylor. Apparently, you could just play a ton of both, getting to 25% there. So happy with the CeeDee Lamb exposure. Wouldn't mind getting to a little bit more of George Pickens. Projected here for 12% ownership. So George Pickens, somebody that I've been thinking I could target as a leverage play on CeeDee Lamb, but if he's going to get 12% ownership, not really much of a leverage play. He's kind of getting a lot of ownership anyway. So maybe not somebody that I need to be targeting there. Now, as I mentioned, I kind of have some interest in Spencer Rattler. Chris Olave, though, projected for 22% ownership. Here, I'm just getting to 3%, which that's more of a stand that I want to take. I think I'm okay being underweight on Chris Olave. I don't know that I want just 3%. So I might increase the pass rate for the Saints overall. But then I really like Rashid Shaheed, projected for 8% ownership, has that big play upside. Again, I think this could be a competitive game that just goes completely off. And you get the receivers. I mean, Rashid Shaheed, only 4,500. Low salaries here for the Saints. So you play up that stack with Spencer Rattler at 4,800, Rashid Shaheed at 4,500, and then Chris Olave at 5,400. You've got a lot of money left over to play whoever you want in the rest of your lineup. So Rashid Shaheed is somebody that I think I'm going to target a bit here. As far as the Commanders go, if Deebo Samuel is in, I think you're mostly just targeting Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz from the Commanders. You could mix in, Chris Moore or a Jalen Lane. I don't think it's clear who would be the priority there. It was Chris Moore running the most routes by far of the secondary receivers on the Commanders last week. But Jalen Lane may be ready for a step forward, getting some positive coach speak. He might be kind of the next up from the Commanders. And Chris Moore projected for 10% ownership here. I'm getting to 2%. So as of right now, we've got Deebo Samuel in. I do think that's a spot where I'll probably play some of Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, all the other receivers on the Commanders. Especially if we get Deebo out, even with Deebo in, I think that they are viable in this matchup with the Cowboys, but certainly not priorities. Just because, I mean, last week we were getting under 40% route participation for Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane. I don't know that we really need to be like projecting them forward to get 70%. So maybe not with Deebo in. Maybe they'd be more interesting if Deebo ends up sitting in this one. I also have a little bit of interest in the Browns. We've got Quinshon Judkins at a lot of ownership, not much going to Jerry Jeudy or Isaiah Bond. Jeudy is 4,400, 7% ownership, just a nut matchup against Miami. So yeah, I've got interest in Jerry Jeudy and Isaiah Bond. I'm not really sure what Dylan Gabriel is at this point. I don't think he's going to be like a great NFL quarterback, but if he's, average to slightly below average, I think against this Miami defense might be good enough. And Isaiah Bond just 3,400 project for 2% ownership. That's an angle that, maybe I shouldn't be making adjustments too much. Again, you don't want to mess with the Sims all that much. If you think that the inputs are correct, that they have, the right market share of the receiving work, if they have the right ownership, you shouldn't really be telling it that it's wrong, that the Sims don't love him, because if all of that is correct, you should just kind of accept the Sims as is. So we'll take a look at the market share there, see if maybe there is an angle. Maybe we can expect them to score more points than they're projected for, because it, on paper looks really good to me. Isaiah Bond at 3,400, running a lot of routes for the Browns and gets the nut matchup. We'll see if I really need to be making changes there, because I want to play some, but I also don't want to bully the Sims too much if I think that the inputs are correct. And again, one angle that I'm sort of interested in is the Jets passing game. They threw it 11 times 1 week this season. They're not throwing it a ton, and they could just revert back to that with Garrett Wilson out this week. They could just run a ton and not throw the ball at all. But I think that's kind of how it's being projected across the industry, is that they're just not going to throw the ball at all, and as a result, not getting to any Josh Reynolds, who steps into the, primarily should be the wide receiver one here, is the expectation for Josh Reynolds at 4,200. Not a great matchup with Carolina this year, but not a terrible one either. Certainly not a priority, but at 2% ownership, 4,200, sort of interested. I'm more likely to play it through the tight end Mason Taylor, which we will get to in a minute. But he's somebody I might consider here, just because I think it's really hard to project what are the Jets going to do without the receiver who was getting 35% target share, whatever it was, for Garrett Wilson. And they have had games where they threw it a ton also. So we're all making the assumption they're just going to stop throwing it without Garrett Wilson. And I think that's a reasonably likely outcome, that they might just not throw it much here. But there is kind of a wide range of outcomes. And I think it's being projected more on one end of that range, as opposed to but Carolina, if Carolina gets up, they're going to be forced to throw some. Maybe they do throw it 35 times, and suddenly Josh Reynolds, Mason Taylor, all these guys are going to look awesome. So we'll take a look at that as an angle that I might play just a bit of the Jets passing game. Again, not like a huge priority here. I do think the likeliest outcome is that the field kind of has it right, that they're going to mostly lean on the run, and they'll throw it 20 times or something. But I think there's a range. There is an outcome where they throw it a lot more than expected, and all of these pass catchers will look a lot better. So I'll play that angle a bit. At tight end, as noted, pretty top heavy here, getting to 33% each of Trey McBride and Michael Mayer, which I guess is not really top heavy. He's 3,500, 13% Tyler Warren, getting to 15% Mason Taylor. So I really want to lean in on Mason Taylor. He's projected for 6% ownership. Again, I think that there is an outcome where he gets targeted 10, 12. I mean, he was targeted 12 times 2 weeks ago. I think if you just remove last week, where he was targeted just once in kind of a fluky, gross game for the entire Jets offense, he only saw one target. So that could happen again. But prior to that, he had been targeted 24 times the previous 3 games, 8 targets per game over those 3 games. Now he gets Carolina, who's allowed the 5th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game, 2 tight ends. So I think Mason Taylor looks awesome to me, but I'm getting to 15%. So I think Run the Sims has him projected kind of closer to where I view Mason Taylor as. Yeah, it looks like a great play. I will say, I think this is one where I need to IKB it on Harold Fannin, because with David Njoku out, I think Fannin could become a primary target, maybe the primary target for Cleveland here in a great matchup with Miami. He is 3,900, project for 8% ownership. I think I'm going to force my way onto double-digit exposure there. I think Harold Fannin and Mason Taylor, probably my 2 favorite tight end plays on the slate. I don't think I need 33% Michael Mayer in a tough matchup with the Chiefs. I think this is one that I want to get lower on Mayer to get to more of Fannin and Mason Taylor. And if Michael Mayer buries me, then I'll just quit DFS at that point. No, not really. But I think this is a spot where Mayer being a little bit over projected to me across the industry, whereas I think I want to lean more in on Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin. All right, so with those notes in mind, I will make some adjustments to the inputs in the Philadelphia Minnesota game. Actually, not going to make any changes there. The only player that I was kind of targeting is Saquon Barkley. I'm already getting to 16% or so of Barkley against Minnesota, which has been kind of a run funnel defense. Other than that, I don't really see any angles that I love in this game. Wanted to lean in on some Vikings here when the Eagles defense was looking like it was going to be pretty injured. A lot of the players that we thought were going to miss this week seem to be on track to play for the Eagles defense. So not a game that I'm really targeting heavily. Just want some Barkley exposure. Saints Bears, I mean, Olave getting a ton of ownership, but Rattler is not getting much ownership. Rashid Shaheed not getting a lot of ownership. I think I want to bet on this game a bit, and I think they could just pass it a bit more here. So I'm going to move the rush rate down just to 42%. I don't think I'm going to make any other changes here, just changing the rush rate to 42%. We'll see if that's enough to get to some Rattler. Again, I don't want to make too many changes because I want to trust the Sims product that I'm using here. But I think we could see the Saints kind of push it a bit more in this matchup. Spencer Rattler playing against Caleb Williams, battle with his former college teammate who took his job in college. So I'm hopeful that he might have some revenge in his heart and might throw the ball a bit more here. Kind of wish casting there, but really it's just a great matchup for the Saints, and the prices are right. And I like what I can get with the rest of my lineup with some of the other pay up options on this slate. So I'm going to lean in there a bit on the Saints passing game. Bears side also interesting, but I'm already getting to double digits on Romo Dunze. DJ Moore, I could get to more. I was already getting to, I think, 5% at 3% ownership. So I'm satisfied with that. Don't really think I see anybody else I need to get ahead of on the Bears. Also getting to some DeAndre Swift already. Raiders Chiefs, I'm not especially interested in anybody on the Raiders. I think Ashton Genty, I want to have some exposure to, but not a huge priority for me. On the Chiefs side, again, I was already getting to a fair amount of Rashee Rice. I think I got to 25%, even with a projected ownership of 29%. Happy with that. I actually wasn't getting to much Xavier Worthy, which is an angle I think you could play for some leverage, but he's only being projected for 5% ownership. So the field kind of already should be, the sim should be, factoring in the leverage that you get with Xavier Worthy. So I don't think I need to force anymore. The one angle I kind of want to play is Isaiah Pacheco, just because we've seen his workload growing over time. The coach we kind of suggests to me they really like Isaiah Pacheco, want to get him going. So in a matchup where they should win pretty easily, there's a pretty big spread here. Pacheco, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him get more work than he's getting currently. So I want to give Pacheco a little bit more of the workload here. 41% rushing market share is exactly in line with what he got last week. But I wouldn't, again, I think he could see that continue to grow. He did play 77% of snaps or something like that last week. So I think the Chiefs are leaning more on Pacheco. So I'm just going to take away some of Kareem Hunt's workload and give that workload directly to Pacheco. Just kind of forecasting that we could continue to see the role continue to expand. So I'm going to change. I'm going to take 27% for Kareem Hunt down to 23%. And then I'm going to bring Pacheco up to 47%. And then normalize. Carolina, New York. I think they're kind of reading the tea leaves the same way I am with Rico Dowdle getting most of the work for the Panthers. I think that looks correct. Don't see anything I need to change here to prioritize on the Panthers and on the Panther side of the game. On the Jet side, again, I think I want to lean in on the possibility that they throw more than expected here. Mason Taylor getting a 24% receiving market share right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see it closer to 30% with Garrett Wilson out. So I'm tempted to increase that even more. I think I might do that, but maybe I'll leave it at 24% for now and just increase the amount I expect them to pass here. The rush rate is at 53.8%. Again, I think there are outcomes where the pass rate goes up quite a bit. So I'm going to move the rush rate down to 52%. And then again, I'm tempted to move up the market share for Mason Taylor, but I'm already getting to 15%. So I think with increasing the pass rate, I'm already going to get to more than 15%. So I don't think I need to change this. But I think that's another angle you could play, is just Mason Taylor might have a 30% target share here with Garrett Wilson out in a nice matchup for tight ends. But again, I'm already getting to a lot, so I'm not going to force the issue. Miami, Cleveland, kind of a tough matchup for the Dolphins. I'm not going to change anything there. On the Brown side, again, I'm getting to a lot of Quinshon Judkins. The field is also getting to a lot of Quinshon Judkins. I think he's a great play this week. But Isaiah Bond, somebody that I'm kind of interested in, and then Harold Fannin I really love. So Fannin to me is the biggest priority on the Browns, and then Bond, Judy are players that I want to mix in a bit. For the most part, I think I'm going to make changes at the team level. Harold Fannin, I think I'm actually going to boost up his receiving market share just a bit. I think he could be a really big priority for the Browns in this game. We've seen Dylan Gabriel kind of like to target tight ends. So I think Fannin, really talented, and just if he runs more routes, I think the target share could be pretty high. But for the most part, going to change things at the team level. Again, I think the 19 seems low even for this Browns offense against the Dolphins. So I'm just going to increase that slightly to 20 points scored. I'm also going to move up the pass rate. So we've got it at 49% rush rate. I'm just going to move that down to 48%. So just kind of, small changes here to maybe get to a bit more of Jerry Jeudy and Isaiah Bond. And then finally, I'm going to give Harold Fannin some of the receiving work from Blake Whiteheart. Maybe I'm wish casting here a little bit, but I think it's going to be Fannin, kind of the Fannin show. I think he might be the primary target for the Browns. And I'm not sure that Blake Whiteheart is somebody I expect to be very involved. So I'm going to move down off of this 5.3% target share for Blake Whiteheart. Going to move that down to 3%. I'm going to move Fannin up to 23%. And then I'm going to click normalize. Also going to move up Isaiah Bond just from 17% to 18%. He's running all the routes. At some point, he should get a higher target share. New England, Tennessee, no real angles that I want to play here. Already getting to a fair amount of I am Manor. Don't see anything that I need to be changing to get to more or less of players here. Giants, Denver, accepting what I get on the Giants side. On the Denver side, again, Bo Nix has not been great, and this is kind of a run funnel defense on the Giants side. So I think we could see the Broncos just run the ball a ton here. I'm going to move up the rush rate, and I think that that should increase how much I get of our RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. I do think also as the rush rate increases, though, RJ Harvey takes on more of that workload rather than J.K. Dobbins maintaining it. So I think if we move up the rush rate to 50%, it's not going to be that J.K. Dobbins suddenly gets 20 carries. I think J.K. Dobbins maybe gets an extra carry or two, but for the most part, RJ Harvey going to fill in some of that extra pie. So I'm going to move up the rush rate again. I want to move it all the way to 50%. I expect them to lean on the run here. And then I'm also going to increase RJ Harvey's share of the running from 19% to 22%. And then I'm going to click normalize. Now, we might find after I run the next set of sims that I overdid it by moving up the rush rate as much as I did, in which case I'll have to come back and adjust again. But I want to see what this is going to give me. And then I can, again, keep running the sims, adjust things until I get to exposures that I like, lineups that look good to me. Colts Chargers, we're getting to a ton of Jonathan Taylor. I'm not going to tell the sims not to give me a ton of Jonathan Taylor. Maybe as I move up other players, again, that kind of relatively lowers the projection on Jonathan Taylor if I move up other running backs. So maybe I'll get a little bit less as I get to other running backs more, but I'm not going to change anything there. Already getting to double-digit exposure to Tyler Warren. Nothing else I really feel that I need to change on the Colts side. On the Chargers side, also I'm getting to a lot of Quentin Johnston. He's my biggest priority. On the Chargers, I'm already getting to a fair amount of Justin Herbert. Don't really think I need to change anything in this game. So I'm just going to kind of accept what I'm getting here in the Colts Chargers game. Cowboys Commanders already projected for a pretty high total here. I'm going to get a lot of this game, already getting to a fair amount of Ja'Cory Cross-Camara, not getting to a ton of Jaden Daniels, which that might be a spot that I might want a bit more of Jaden Daniels than I'm getting to currently. I don't think I'm going to change it this run of the Sims. I'll see what happens with the next run. Maybe I will increase some Jaden Daniels if I'm still not getting to any. The reason is because he's projected for so much ownership. So it's hard to prioritize him in tournaments as he is the chalk. But maybe since I moved up some cheaper options, maybe I get to a bit more Jaden Daniels as the higher projected quarterback here. Deebo Samuel looks good. I don't think I'm going to make any changes for now on guys like Chris Moore, Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey. We'll see what happens if Deebo Samuel ultimately is ruled out. Then you might want to get to some of those guys, but honestly, not big priorities here. I do want to make sure I get to some Zach Ertz. Currently getting to 5% Ertz, and I'm slightly scared I'm going to lose that with my changes to Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin. So maybe I do want to just increase the target share for Zach Ertz. I'm going to move him up, and I'm going to make sure I have Smart Adjust on. I'm going to move Zach Ertz up from a 17% target share to 18% and click normalize. On the Cowboy side, again, I was already getting to a lot of CeeDee Lamb. I was getting to 9% or so of George Pickens. That all looks good. I don't really see anything I need to change here. I'm tempted to decrease the projected ownership on Javonte Williams because I really like him. Want to make sure I get some here. But I think the sim is probably accurate that he's going to get about 24% ownership. So maybe I'll just let the sims tell me what to do here with Javonte. I'm just going to leave things as is for the Cowboys. They look great, but they're already simming well. And Green Bay, Arizona, not going to make any changes. Just going to take what the sims give me here. So with those slight tweaks that I've made to some of these projections to get to more of the players I love here, I'm going to click the Sim Runner Pro button. This will take a few minutes. I'm going to cut that part out of the video. All right, after making some small adjustments to the Sims, this is what I'm getting now. Patrick Mahomes in the first lineup here, stacked with Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco. Bring back a Michael Mayer on this one. Quinshon Judkins in the lineup with CeeDee Lamb, Quentin Johnston, Trey McBride, and the Chiefs defense. Second lineup is a Justin Herbert stack with both Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen. We've got a Jonathan Taylor bring back. This one has J.K. Dobbins, Rashee Rice, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, and the Chiefs defense. Third lineup, interestingly, we get a double stack of Geno Smith with Jacoby Myers and Michael Mayer. No bringbacks from the Chiefs. We've got Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Marvin Harrison Jr., CeeDee Lamb, Trey McBride, and the Packers defense. Let's take a look at my exposures, see if the changes I made did anything too drastic. So starting with the quarterback position, We actually got a little bit more Jaden Daniels. I think we were at 5%. Now we're up to 7%. Glad to see that. I like Jaden Daniels. Patrick Mahomes still at 8%. As far as double digits, we're getting to 14%. Dak Prescott, 19%. Justin Herbert, 10%. Caleb Williams. Uh, Still just 2% Spencer Rattler. So the changes I made to the Saints passing game didn't really make any big difference there as far as Spencer Rattler goes. Did get to a little bit less of Bo Nix, which I'm okay with that. I was getting to a ton. I'm still triple the field on Bo Nix. He's honestly not a big priority for me. So I'm okay getting a little bit less there. Fields I'm up to 3%, so still not getting to a ton of fields. So one adjustment that I like to make. I think I still want more of Spencer Rattler than I'm getting to right now. Dylan Gabriel, a player that I'm a little bit interested in at 4,400. Not a big priority for me. Wouldn't mind getting to a couple percent of Dylan Gabriel at 1% projected ownership. Didn't make any changes to him specifically, though. Just made some changes, or the passing game specifically, just made some changes to some of the receivers there. Actually, no, I did. I changed the market share to pass heavier, I think, on the Browns. So I don't know, not a huge priority, but somebody I wouldn't mind getting into a few of my lineups. Generally, though, okay with where my quarterback exposures are right now. Nothing drastic that I need to change here. At running back, in terms of double digits, still I'm down to 49% Jonathan Taylor. That looks a little bit better to me. Still, 49% is plenty there. 27% Josh Jacobs, 27% Breece Hall, 19% Saquon Barkley, 11% Javonte Williams, 17% Quinshon Judkins, 24% J.K. Dobbins, 13% DeAndre Swift, 10% Isaiah Pacheco. So some of the changes that I made, obviously, I changed uh, the expectation of the Broncos running game, that they're going to rush 50% of the time. So I increased that significantly and did get to a lot more J.K. Dobbins as a result. I'm triple the field now on J.K. Dobbins. He doesn't actually project extremely well for 5,600, which is why he's not getting a ton of ownership. And this is a spot where, I don't really know that I expect them to run that much more, but I think that is within the range of outcomes. So I made some changes to get more there. I don't know that I need to be triple the field, but okay getting significantly over the field on J.K. Dobbins. Curious, did I get any? Still didn't get any RJ Harvey. So another thing I did is I increased RJ Harvey's share of the role. Still didn't get to any there. Don't know that you necessarily need to get to any RJ Harvey, but something that I'm kind of playing through, that I might want a bit there. And then I got to 10% Isaiah Pacheco. Now I increased his market share of the running work. 10% looks great to me of Isaiah Pacheco. I like him at 5,000. I don't like, this is kind of the high end of what I want of Pacheco. I don't, if I got to 6%, double the field, I'd be okay with that also. But this looks good to me. Generally pretty happy with where I'm at with the running backs here. Wide receivers in double digits, I'm at 27% Rashee Rice, 23% CeeDee Lamb, 26% Justin Jefferson, 17% Deebo Samuel, 28% Quentin Johnston, 13% Rome Odunze, 15% Cortland Sutton, 18% Keenan Allen, 14% Marvin Harrison Jr., 12% Lad McConkey, 16% Jacoby Myers, 13% Jordan Addison. As far as the Saints guys, I'm interested. 4% now over Chichi Heat. So still didn't get to a ton there. I think I might need to make some adjustments to him specifically instead of just the passing game overall. And then Chris Olave, I'm at 7%. So a little bit more than I was getting previously. So I guess I increased the amount I expect them to pass. That all went straight to Chris Olave, not to Rashid Shaheed. So maybe we need to actually increase Rashid Shaheed's market share of the receiving work. 2% Judy, 2% Bond. Wouldn't mind getting a bit more there of the Cleveland receivers, but maybe I just got to more Hero Fan, and we'll take a look at tight ends. 1% Josh Reynolds here. At tight end, down to 29% Trey McBride, up to 37% Michael Mayer. This is a spot where I really just don't think I need this much Michael Mayer. I really think the upside of Hero Fan and Mason Taylor is higher. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, this is a spot where maybe I should just be trusting the Sims. But I think the 7% ownership on Michael Mayer, I think it could end up being higher because he's projecting pretty well across the board. I don't know. He's had a strong role with Brock Bowers out, so maybe that does continue here. But I think the upside to me looks higher for Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin, just in better matchups for tight ends, stronger roles, I think. So I'd rather lean on Fannin and Mason Taylor rather than, 37% is just a bit much for Michael Mayer. So at some point, I might just have to cut out his market share slightly to get more of the tight ends that I want to focus on. But I don't want to lose all the Mayer. I mean, if he does only get 7% ownership, I will want to be above above weight to the field on that. I just don't think I need to be taking this big of a stand on a guy that honestly not a huge priority for me. There are other tight ends that I like better here. And then defenses were up to double digits on the Chiefs also, along with the Browns, but generally pretty spread out. So again, now I'm just going to make a few changes. So I'm going to start with the Saints. I'm going to increase their pass rate even more. So I'm going to move the rush rate down to 40% for the Saints to maybe get a bit more of just, of Spencer Rattler. And I'm also going to increase Rashid Shaheed's target share, which again, the inputs might be totally right here, but I'm just going to increase it, IKB it, because I like the top end of the range of outcomes for Shaheed. So I'm going to increase his market share from 17.8% to 19%. And I have the smart adjust button on. So what that does is when I change the market share, it also proportionally changes the touchdown receiving market share. So it changes that together if you click this smart adjust button. So I made sure to have that on. Everything else I think I can leave as is for the Saints. So I'm going to click normalize. Chiefs Raiders, again, I just want to get a little bit less of Michael Mayer because I really like some of the other tight ends on this slate. So I think I'm just going to decrease his market share slightly from 23% to 22% and click normalize. On the Jets, really, my biggest priority here is just Mason Taylor. Again, I have some interest in Josh Reynolds as the nominal wide receiver one here, but Mason Taylor, the bigger priority for me. I'm actually just going to move up his receiving market share from 23.5% to 25%, which honestly I think could still be underselling him a little bit. I think he could have north of 30% market target share here. I'm actually, sorry, I didn't click the smart adjust button. So I'm going to, maybe I have to increase this slightly more. I'm just going to move him to 26%. And then I'll click normalize. Cleveland, again, I think I'm going to move the rush rate down even more. I'm still getting to a ton of Quinshon Judkins. I just want a little bit more of the pass catchers here. So I'm just going to move the rush rate from 48% to 47%. I don't really want to sacrifice the Quinshon Judkins exposure that I am getting. So I need to be careful here, changing it too much. But I'm hopeful that will give me a bit more of Fannin, Judy, Bond. And then I'm also going to just give Fannin even a little bit more of the workload, still not getting to a ton. So I'm going to have the smart adjust button on. Gonna again move more from Blake Whiteheart to Harold Fannin. So I'm gonna move Whiteheart down just to 2%, Fannin up to 24%, and call it good. I was getting to a ton of J.K. Dobbins and none of RJ Harvey. I wouldn't mind getting to just a bit less of J.K. Dobbins and try to get to some RJ Harvey. So I'm actually going to adjust the rushing market share a bit more. So I'm going to change it from 21% for RJ Harvey up to 25% and see if that makes a difference. So that should bring down J.K. Dobbins just a little bit, brings up R.J. Harvey. Maybe I get a bit of R.J. Harvey at the very least if I cut down from 24% J.K. Dobbins to 20% or 16%, something like that. I'd be happy with that. I think that's it for changes on this one. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to click the SimRunner Pro button again and see what comes out. All right, the third run of the Sims is done. That's going to be the final run for this video. But again, you can keep running the Sims until you get to exposures and lineups that you really love. I'm getting closer, as you can see here. I'm getting Spencer Rattler near the top. But top lineup here is Patrick Mahomes with Rashee Rice. Does not have any bringbacks from the Raiders. Got DeAndre Swift, Breece Hall, Isaiah Bond, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Jonathan Taylor, and the Cardinals defense. Second lineup is a Spencer Rattler double stack with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Looks great. We've got Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Isaiah Bond, Trey McBride, Josh Jacobs, and the Browns defense. Third lineup is a Justin Herbert double stack, triple stack actually, with Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and Ladd McConkey. Does not have any bringbacks from the Colts. Has Quentin Johnston, Javonte Williams, Justin Jefferson, Michael Mayer, and the Saints defense. Looking at my exposures now, starting with quarterbacks. Double digits, we're getting to 15% Dak Prescott, 13% Caleb Williams, 11% Justin Herbert. That's it as far as double digits. So pretty spread out at quarterback. Getting to 7% Jaden Daniels, 9% Patrick Mahomes. We're down to 6% Bo Nix. Up to 7% Spencer Rattler. So love to see that. Getting 1% Dylan Gabriel now. At running back, we're back over 50%, 54% Jonathan Taylor, 27% Josh Jacobs, 22% Breece Hall, 14% Javonte Williams, 17% Saquon Barkley, 19% Quinshon Judkins, 20% J.K. Dobbins, 16% DeAndre Swift. That's it as far as double digits. Down to 3% Isaiah Pacheco. Not sure what I did there, but I guess getting to some other running backs more. Just kind of shifted the whole shape of things with that last those last adjustments. So interesting to see that we're back down to 3% Isaiah Pacheco. Honestly, he's not the biggest priority for me. So if I'm right with the field at 3%, it's not a huge issue for me. Wouldn't mind getting above weight there, but that's not something that I necessarily need to keep adjusting for. Still not getting to any RJ Harvey as we're tracking that, which again is fine. I don't think he's a big priority, but somebody that I might try to mix in just a bit. Wide receivers in double digits were at 29% Rashee Rice, 24% CeeDee Lamb, 20% Justin Jefferson, 16% Deebo Samuel, 27% Quentin Johnson, 17% Romo Dunze, 11% George Pickens, 15% Chris Olave, 12% Cortland Sutton, 14% Marvin Harrison Jr., 21% Keenan Allen, 15% Rashid Shaheed, 17% Jacoby Myers, 10% Elik Ayamanor. We're now up to 5% Isaiah Bond. I like that. Still just 1% Jerry Jeudy. At tight end, I'd say we're getting pretty close to where I'd like to be. 32% Trey McBride, 11% Tyler Warren. We're up to 17% Harold Fannin, 24% Mason Taylor, down to 26% of Michael Mayer. That's it as far as double digits. I still might want to shift more of that Michael Mayer to Harold Fannin. 24% Mason Taylor is plenty. I love him on the slate, but I don't think I need more than that. It is, again, well within the range of outcomes that they just throw the ball 15 times and Mason Taylor, even with a heavy target share, doesn't actually get targeted more than 5 times at 3,400. So I like him quite a bit, but don't think I need more than 24%, especially with Harold Fannin on the slate, who I absolutely love as well. Finally, defenses, now we're just at 11%. Cleveland Browns, 11%. Saints defense now are the two that I'm getting to in double digits, but pretty spread out overall. So not going to make any more adjustments here, but getting closer and closer to exposures that I like, to lineups that look awesome to me. Glad we're getting to a bit more of Spencer Rattler in that last run of the Sims. You can, if you run the Sims on Sunday morning within like an hour of lock, you're going to get great lineups. So like you're just going to get a solid set of lineups. If you're using the Sim Runner Pro Plus option in particular, if you're using the Shady Portfolio Optimizer, you can just use the lineups that you get. You don't need to make all the changes I did here. I made some changes to get closer to lineups that I like, but generally I'm already over the field on a lot of the players that I like, even without making those adjustments. I was getting to 14, 15% Harold Fannin. So the Sims are liking some of the same things that I am naturally. And then obviously I made some changes here, but you don't really need to make all of those changes because, again, some of the best DFS players in the world are running the Run the Sims product. So make adjustments as necessary, but maybe you don't want to go overboard there. All right. Thank you guys very much for checking out the video. Please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. And if you want to check out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment on any of their products. Thanks and good luck this weekend.